All right, let's get this show started. Well, I'm gonna start. I don't know where Cliff just ran to. He was here a minute ago. Hello, everybody. Welcome to 2022. This is Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Tolkien. Torn stands for the One Ring .net. One Ring Net. The One Ring Net. Torn. That's what everybody's called us after all these years. That's what we call ourselves. Torn Tuesday. It's a show now entering our 11th year on the air, the longest running fantasy podcast. I'm going to claim it right now. Cliff, how are you? No, we started at Stickam. We started at Stickam Studios high above Los Angeles. Wait, no one can hear you. Hang on, no one can hear you. And that is my fault. I know, but the stream can't hear you. So hold on, folks. Oh man,
Hello, everybody.
OBS changed the settings. Sorry, folks. Little hardware mishap there.
Well, now you can hear me just fine. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy
Is
New Year,
that
Cliff.
better? Is that better?
That's
Um,
way
um,
better.
you're telling me that I was trying to go back in the Wayback Machine to broadcasting our early versions of the OneRing.net Torn Tuesday at Meltdown Comics, and then you dug further back into the dinosaur fossil record to go way back in time to Stickcam when we began there, the beautiful
Stickam was the first
downtown
app
Los Angeles.
on
Yes.
iOS. It was the first app that let you stream
Yes.
from your phone or iPad. And we took all of you along with us to Comic Con. And then the Comic Con was such a big deal. Stickam said, "Hey, do you guys want to do something crazier?"
Yes.
And we
Yes.
said,
It's
"Why
true.
don't we drive across the country to Dragon Con and stream the whole way?" And I can tell you,
Yes, we did.
that was crazy. We had the iPad or the iPad mounted in the corner of the dashboard of the truck, so everybody could watch and hear us. And Cliff, I was sick of hearing your voice because you entertained everybody 24 hours a day as we drove
Oh my
across the country.
my goodness
Um,
gracious. I did. I tried. Well, I tried my best. Whether that was a success or not is a matter of debate on the historical record. But look at this. Look at this. Here we are now in a new year with a brand new show, a new Lord of the Rings TV show experience happening, a new year, a whole new beginning, and just less than
we've got
24 hours ago,
we've
less
got
than
a
24
bunch of
hours ago,
announcements, but
we
yeah,
did a birthday toast. We have to
yeah.
say first things first before it
First things
gets
first.
too late. It's too late in the calendar for some people around the world. Maybe it's January 4th where you are, but we just celebrated January 3rd, which is John Ronald Reuel Tolkien and his 130th birthday. Here's my
Birthday.
not is a beautiful birthday for the professor, and we did a live toast at Scum and Villainy Cantina last night. I have my non-alcoholic brew right here, so we can I quit drinking. It's really quite good, and I'm feeling great about it. It's really good.
Congratulations! I gotta say,
Yeah.
a lot. You know, the pandemic has been stressful for a lot of people on a lot of different levels, and kudos to those that have improved their health and their life situation. And Cliff,
Mm.
I joke with you all the time, but I gotta say, I'm really proud of you.
Well,
You
thank
know,
you. Thank
to
you.
to, to,
It's
to, to
yeah.
take that step.
After 3 months, after 3.5 months, your metabolism starts to reset, and you get a healthier night's sleep, and your body chemistry is starting to change in response to the alcohol not being there anymore. And I talked to my doctor, and they said, "Holy moly, that's the best news you could have told us in a long time." They said your cholesterol is going to go down, all of your blood work is going to improve, your triglycerides, even if we were thinking that you might be pre maybe pre type 2 diabetes, you don't have to worry about that now. Just by drinking out like no alcohol anymore, I am radically improving my overall program of health. And I didn't even know that. And I'm really glad to say I'm happy to be here. Happy and lucky to be here. Happy New Year, everybody. But before we get too deep into those, I'm telling you, to the professor is the three simple words that everybody around the world would do at 9 o'clock p.m. in their own time zone. And we did that last night here on the Pacific Coast. And all my friends were texting me on the East Coast when they were doing it. So, we're a little late to the game. But everybody who's with us in the live chat,
I want to join you. I want to join you, but I'm empty. So
no, get something. Get something.
Let's let the chat decide. I've got some Dempsey's Irish whiskey. I've got
that's lovely.
Some Slane Irish whiskey, or I've got Bullet bourbon. What do you think Tolkien would prefer?
I would say go with the second choice if you're asking me.
Slane?
Yeah. The Slane Irish whiskey. I think he might try that. I don't know. it certainly. I don't know if he would go for the American bourbon.
The chat room says Irish for sure.
Yeah,
so
he might be more interested something closer to the home soil, maybe in terms of.
Ellen says definitely one of the whiskeys. All right, so Slane Irish whiskey it is.
Yeah, we're talking about the wind that shakes the barley, right? Here we are. I have to say it. Here we go. Everybody with us in the chat on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and Discord, and everybody join us. Here we say, to the professor. Cheers.
To the professor.
To the professor. Clink.
We've got a lot of exciting news to go through.
Refreshing. Very refreshing.
Let's stay on Tolkien for a second. Cliff, I don't know if the audio is going to come through for you, but you watched this yesterday, and I wanted to show this to everybody. But let's take a look at the BBC unearthed.
I was actually watching this yesterday.
Rare video, rare interview with J.R.R. Tolkien.
Oh yeah, that was lovely. That was great.
So let's see if I can pull this up. Hold on. Oh wait, no, that's not it. Wait. Hey. Let's capture 8. Cliff, you're just sitting there looking great as always. We've got, let's see, BBC archive.
Glowing today.
All right. Let's play this clip.
Particular sort of bloke. And I took 14 years, not for the general things it is now, but refining time schemes and getting everything right and so on.
Well, for instance, this whole matter of the appendices, 100 pages, language, social customs, history. Normally, if you had been writing a history as a historian, all these would have existed on a card index before you ever began to write.
Yeah.
Is this true for the Lord of the Rings?
So, yes. One thing that, for instance, in the remarks you made at the beginning was the fact that time passed and the hobbits grew into this world. Yes. Matter of fact, what really happened was that because having already constructed the world, they became drawn into it.
The world was constructed like a model aeroplane.
No, but it existed in posse and in a large scale plan before The Hobbit was written. The Hobbit was in fact originally an attempt to write something outside it, and we grew into it.
So that you had literally invented the world before you even wrote The Hobbit. Why?
But ideally, was something which we're only looking at passage to 1/4 of a second. And aesthetic,
I could not
aesthetic passage is as strong and very good as novel. Well, in this world that you yourself.
So that was J.R.R. Tolkien in his own words talking specifically about the appendices. I mean, there it is in black and white, literally black and white video. But the interviewer says, "What about these appendices?" And Tolkien says right there, "I started with the appendices basically, and The Hobbit was an attempt to write outside of Middle Earth, and he ended up writing The Hobbit into Middle Earth that was already created." So there you have on camera Tolkien saying that the appendices were written before The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, the elements of the appendices. And that brings us into 2022 because the appendices is what Amazon has licensed. That is what they're making. The appendices is the original Tolkien story.
Absolutely. And that's where you get, remember that beautiful unboxing we did? That's where they put the bookmark right at the end of the story after the last page of the Grey Havens. That's it. There's not even any consideration of Sam saying, well, I'm back at the end. They put the bookmark in appendices, section 1, part 1. Annals of the Kings and Rulers. Yeah, look at that.
Like wood. It smells like wood.
Oh, it looks like the pesky Grey Wanderer has interrupted my broadcast yet again. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm being interrupted by the Grey Wanderer, the cat. The cat named Mithrandir.
But Cliff, look at that bookmark. Look at that bookmark.
It's a beautiful bookmark, and you notice it's at the end. It's on like the very last. What is it? 120 pages.
Cliff, this is 12. This is 12 hours of Peter Jackson's Oscar-winning feature film, and this is what
5
Amazon
seasons.
has to work with for $1 billion. $1 billion for this much?
5 seasons for that much. But within those pages wait, we must clarify within those 110 pages, maybe it's 112 pages. I don't know. Right there are thousands and thousands of years of the most broad canvas of storytelling in Arda, including Numenor itself. And that brings us to what we're going to talk about with the gossip and all the talk on Reddit and everywhere, is that, even back in late October, other folks were confirming that Isildur is going to be, the central character of the series for 5 seasons on Amazon show.
Well, you proved that in the first page. The first page of the Appendix A, Annals of the Kings and Rulers, the Numenorian
We were briefly
kings.
reading it. They go right into the amazing depth
but
of
this
the
is
royal
$1 billion?
family. Well, do you know what? Guess who else is involved? Sauron. And guess who else? The elves and the dwarves.
Is
so many
Akalabeth mentioned in this small sliver?
The Akalabeth, the downfall of Numenor? Yes, it's actually very briefly outlined. Yes.
So what we understand is if it is in this book and it has not been put to film, it's fair game to Amazon.
Do you know what? There are details in there in the appendices that cover all of the War of the Ring in very, brief sketches, but everything else before and a lot of stuff after. They've licensed a treasure trove of storytelling, even though it does seem to be just about 120 pages or less.
Now, this edition of Lord of the Rings that Amazon graciously sent us includes an index.
This is it's a new anniversary edition with an updated index. Yes, that's right.
It has an index. So literally, I can go to Akalabeth and see if it's in the index.
Not that word, but the downfall of Numenor has its own little section proper.
So if it's in this index, that means it's in this book. That means Amazon has the rights to it. Correct? That is what we know for sure, 100%. They've said that since day one.
I wouldn't clamp down on that theory too hard, because that index also covers the bulk of the War of the Ring, which they did not license.
But that's the caveat. They cannot remake anything that has been made into a movie before.
Right.
They cannot remake anything. But if it's mentioned in this book. So if I go to A, I see Anarion is mentioned.
That's Isildur's brother. Yes. Yeah. Remember, the two statues of the Argonath were changed in the movie. It was supposed to be Isildur and his brother, Anarion, not Isildur and his father, which they showed in the movie, Elendil. So that was a big change in the movie from the original script.
You know what else is in this appendix? And Calagon the Black.
And Calagon the Black is in the appendix? Is in the index?
Is in the index. You know what else?
Probably because he's mentioned by name somewhere in the Council of Elrond, maybe.
Akalabeth is mentioned right here in the index.
Really? Oh, okay.
The Calibeth is mentioned.
What page does it direct you to go to?
1035, which puts it squarely in the
The
appendices.
appendices. Yes, that's
Yes.
right.
In fact, it's on page 3 of the appendices. So
Page 3.
they have rights. Chat room, is there anything that you know about Middle Earth that you want me to check to see if they have rights to? Now, Cliff, you know the process of storytelling means things get changed. I mean, Peter Jackson famously took the Hobbits to Osgiliath and changed
Yes.
Faramir as a character and gave
Yes.
Treebeard's lines to Galadriel in the intro. So the question is, for you, Cliff, would it be appropriate if Calagon the Black is featured in an upcoming season of Amazon's Lord of the Rings?
No, that would be entirely stupid. No, that's not going to happen. No,
why would it be stupid?
Because it is a long, long, long dead dragon from millennia ago. What are you talking about? No.
I don't know.
Sorry, that's not going to happen.
Anyway,
it's not going to happen.
Look, those are the rights Amazon has rights to anything mentioned in that book and the stories mentioned in the appendices. And what we know is the Tolkien estate has told them that extra stuff might be available on a case-by-case basis, but they have to pitch the Tolkien estate. They have to pitch every time they want to use something that's not in these books, like stuff from Unfinished Tales and the appendices. They have to ask permission and explain why they want to use that and how they can use it.
So if they're going to do anything with the Blue Wizards, then the Blue Wizards that are only briefly mentioned in the appendix, that's the earlier version. There was a later version of the Blue Wizards when Professor Tolkien thought about their work and their efforts against Sauron in the East and the influences of Morgoth in the East. So maybe if they wanted to license a later version that was written by Tolkien in a later manuscript, then that's what you're talking about. They'd have to petition the Tolkien estate and explain their case and then try to license extraneously some other things outside of the regular Lord of the Rings appendices. That sounds like a lot to do.
So
that's a lot to handle for an intellectual property. It's a lot.
Yeah, but we know that Finrod is in the photo that Amazon released. We know that's Finrod. So
we do know that.
Is he talked about much in the appendices?
No. The appendices is much more concerned with other events.
That's an example of the limited rights that Amazon can ask for. There's a character named Finrod. We want to tell a flashback. Can we use Finrod? Tolkien estate approves or denies.
I see. Something like that. Okay, well.
So guys, that's how you can so we're explaining this to get to one of the topics of today, which is the latest rumors. Is Cliff, this is your rumor actually. I heard it from you and you did.
It was on Reddit. I saw the people are talking about it on Reddit that a new character is going to be Isildur's sister. Sister. We know a lot.
Sister.
There's a new character like Tauriel, who is from the Elven King's realm, the Woodland realm in Mirkwood. So we have a new female character that is not spoken about or addressed by Professor Tolkien.
Okay.
And now they're in like Peter and Fran and Philippa were inventing a new character in the Hobbit trilogy. We have Isildur having a sister, and they announced this actress, and they were talking about who she was and how she was cast in the role. And I thought that you might have heard about this rumor too. People talking about it on Reddit. Did you? And you didn't hear about it until I found it first.
No.
Well, how about that?
That?
It is a first sign, maybe a pretty big signal that not only are they working with real characters that are named in the books under the existing license, but they're willing to create all new characters out of whole cloth. And this might be one of our earliest indications so that the fandom can get, settled with that idea and get comfortable with it. It's really going to happen.
So, guys, I just want to remind you, we just showed you how big the appendices actually are. They
Credit to
have to make
Credit to Fellowship of Fans. Was it Fellowship of Fans was talking about it first before the people on Reddit? That might be true. I'm checking with the people who are in the live chat, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure where it came from.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of rumors that have been floating around Discord and stuff like that. But so if there's this much 100 pages, they have to make stuff up. They just do. Mm-hmm. There has to be that, and they have license to make stuff up. Is this, Cliff? Do you think the reaction to Toriel by hardcore fans has put Amazon in a sticky situation? I mean, people had issues with Toriel, the creation of Toriel, who's not even in the books anywhere. Like, so I think the gut reaction when you just said that some people in the chat room are just like, oh my God, they're already making up characters.
So you know what? A lot of other people in the chat room are saying, of course, there are only like 10 people mentioned in Numenor in the Second Age at that point. Of course, they're inventing new characters. And I appreciate that pragmatism. You have to have this happen, and you have to be pragmatic in understanding how this is going to go down. We saw it with Tauriel, and the main complaint, a lot of fans really loved Tauriel as a new character, being the captain of the guard in Mirkwood, being so beautifully played by Evangeline Lilly. And a lot of other fans did not like it, and they thought it was kind of Mary Sue. And that if it looks like and smells like a Mary Sue, then that's what it is. It's a Mary Sue character. And that's a type of reference to fan fiction where, the authoress will insert, a character that represents her being in that world, in that secondary world, where, getting to run around with all the heroes and getting their attention and all that stuff. So it's like, half of there was some division, perhaps. Maybe there was some division in different points of view about Tauriel.
Is there a family tree in here?
But
I'm looking for a family tree. The realms and the heirs of Isildur. There's the northern line and the southern line. What's going on there? What before I jump into this? So the latest rumor is Isildur in Amazon show has a sister and a brother, and only the brother is mentioned in this book. But I turned to the appendices, and it says the realms in exile, the northern line, heirs of Isildur, and the southern line. What's the difference, Cliff?
Well, the northern line was Arnor, and Arnor was founded by, Gil-galad. With the help of Gil-galad and Elrond. It was Elendil who was, after the downfall of Numenor, had his boats swept up by the storms up to the north, and that's where they founded Arnor. And then the brothers, Isildur and Anarion, were down south, and they founded the southern realm of Gondor. So that's a reference to Gondor and Arnor, two separate northern and southern locations.
It does look like Anarion, according to Tolkien, it looks like Anarion takes a presiding role over the southern line, the kings of Gondor, and Isildur helps his pop more in Arnor.
He tries to, but
because it says right here, kings of Gondor. There's Elendil, Isildur, and parentheses Isildur. So he's a second thought. Anarion, and then son of Anarion.
Right.
Yeah.
But
so there you go.
In the long history of the way those family genealogies are done, even if you look in the Bible and they show family trees of people connected back to the prophet Moses, and all this stuff is usually male-centric. It is often very, very exclusionary of female characters in family trees, and that is unless they are noted for who they married and what children they bore. And that, for better or for worse, and it's usually for worse, it is an aspect of, genealogical record keeping that even Professor Tolkien modeled his genealogies in, keeping track of family names in as much as they were maintained through the patriarchy of the royal line. Except in those other instances when a queen of Numenor or a queen of Gondor was introduced in the story, and then his work on genealogy includes them. So,
but he specifically does not mention women in the genealogies unless they had a leadership role.
Unless it was part of the storytelling that he was trying to put together, and he had an intention. If it supported his storytelling intention, then he would include it, obviously. But and I'm making a general comparison to the way history has treated women in genealogy studies and the way family branches are looked at, and the royal genealogy, blah blah blah. Except I'm sure with very interesting.
Alex in the chat room says, I need the unfinished tales. Now, I want to tell you, I'm specifically not, and Cliff knows why, but I'm specifically not reading Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales because I want to go into Amazon Show with what we know they only have. And and we know that they may have little bits and pieces of Unfinished Tales, but this is their license right here.
And if it is their license.
If
it's not in there, they still have the ability to create new things. And what I wanted to underscore for everybody is that I could not find a family tree anywhere that showed any sister of Anarion and Isildur. I just could not find
Alex says that Unfinished Tales has family trees, like actual trees. Like,
let me go grab my copy of.
You grab that copy while I mention. So, folks, again, if it's in this 100 pages, Amazon has the rights. These are the names of the kings and queens of Numenor. So, here's the characters that they have to play with. Elros, Tar Miniatur, Vardamir, Tar Amendil, Tar Elendil, Tar Menildur, Tar Alderion, Tar Ancalame. Tar must be the title, king.
It is a title.
All right, so we're not. So it's a title. They're not going to call him Tar Palantir the whole time. They're going to call him Palantir and Elendil and Isildur.
Okay.
They say and Vanamelde, the third queen of Numenor. Oh, okay. Tar Ancalame is the first ruling queen. And then Tar Telperen is the second queen. All right, so there are 3 queens of Numenor.
Mm-hmm. I'm on page 221 of Unfinished Tales, and I'm looking at the earliest generations of the line of Elros. Elros, who is the twin brother of Elrond, who chose to be human, and he was the first king of Numenor. And I'm looking here on this family tree, and
do you see Isildur?
No, he's not. Tar Elendil. Elendil is mentioned, and his brother.
She's in Elendil. Not she is in the days of Tar Elendil. The first ships of the Númenóreans came back to Middle Earth. His elder child was a daughter. Hang on, wait a sec. Did we just say? Didn't we? Is that who we're talking about?
Well,
it says, in the days of Tar Elendil, the first ships of the Númenóreans came back to Middle Earth. His elder child was a daughter. So that's not a made-up character, is it?
No, I don't think it's the same person. It's a different king. Tar Elendil was a different king.
It's a different king. Okay.
Yeah, different king. Yep, that's a different person. And
thank you, Alex.
I'm actually looking. And I do not see
The
what I'm
sixth
looking for.
king left only one child, a daughter. She became the first queen, for it was then made a law of the royal house that the eldest child of the king, whether man or woman, should receive the scepter.
You're right. Right.
That is the rules of Numenor. The eldest king, the eldest child, whether man or woman, should receive the scepter. So before anyone starts complaining that this show is woke and an affront to Tolkien, they just need to read the appendices, because it's all in here, guys. Yeah, Alex reminds us it's easy to get confused. Even Christopher made mistakes. That's right. Christopher Tolkien was like, even brought in expert help to kind of figure out some of that.
Indeed.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that there's not much in Unfinished Tales that covers there's some small section about Numenor, but not much. There's really not much. And the most interesting stuff, if they go for anything in Unfinished Tales, it would be a whole bunch of this stuff about Galadriel and Celeborn, which I actually consider more of the meat and potatoes of an interesting story about her. But there are some small details in Unfinished Tales.
K2SO, thank you for mentioning that. K2SO in the chat room saying Evangeline Lilly looked great in the role of Tauriel, but the story with Keely and Legolas was not great. Well, we agree. Everyone agrees. That was a studio note that Peter Jackson had to reshoot the love triangle, and Evangeline Lilly was so angry that she intentionally signed up for this role to be a kick-ass heroine, and to be put in a love triangle during reshoots was honestly, it's not what she signed up for at all. So she wasn't happy at all about that.
No, she wasn't.
Neither were we. So check this out. I'm in 6 pages in to the appendix. If you guys want to know what September 2nd, again, according to Prime, September 2nd, 2022 is the day we should have marked on our calendars. But this is probably everything we know about their show. This is probably a good start. Here we are, page 5 of the appendices. It says, "The realm of Numenor endured to the end of the Second Age."
Yep, and that's the end of the series, I'm sure.
That's the era that this takes place in, I believe. But and increased ever in power and splendor until half the age had passed. The Numenorians grew also in wisdom and joy. So this is a society that is rich and healthy and smart and happy. That's where the show may start
for a while
in a nice place. The first sign of the shadow that was to fall upon them appeared in the days of Tar-Minastir, 11th king of Numenor. He it was that sent a great force to the aid of Gil-galad. He loved the Eldar, but envied them. The Numenorians had now become great mariners, exploring all the seas eastward, and they began to yearn for the west and the forbidden waters. And the more joyful was their life, the more they began to long for the immortality of the Eldar. So that kind of sets up something that is relevant even today, of a society that is seeing their mortality, and they want to live forever.
Yeah, a society that has, excuse me, an entire species of human men who have been given incredible gifts for their loyalty and their assistance to the Eldar and the Valar, and then so many centuries later, they had forgotten that what the gift was they were given, and then they sought to have out of jealousy, a jealousy that was fueled by the lies of Sauron. And I mean dirty, dirty lies of Sauron, getting the Númenóreans to a spiritual breaking point where they desired immortality that was beyond the gift of men. And boy, does it go south. It was the final king of Númenor, who was not one of the faithful. Ar-Pharazôn, who took over the kingship, controversially, took over the kingship of Númenor in its last, moment of existence. He was against those people
right
who
here,
were faithful to the Valar.
And it says right here he got greedy. It says, Ar-Pharazôn the Golden was the proudest and most powerful of all the kings of Númenor, and no less than the kingship of the world was his desire.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, can you imagine Sauron approaching him with rings of power and saying, "Oh, you want power? I got power. You want want a little magic ring? Look what it can do."
He had already the wraiths had already been selected. He didn't have a ring left to give Ar-Pharazôn.
Oh, he didn't.
No, he did
okay,
not.
yeah. It says right here, Ar-Pharazôn resolved to challenge Sauron the Great for the supremacy in Middle-earth.
Yep. And then Sauron surprisingly threw himself down at the feet of the Númenórean king and allowed himself to be taken prisoner back to the continent of Númenor.
Then Ar-Pharazôn, in the folly of his pride, carried Sauron back as a prisoner. It was not long before he had bewitched the king and was master of his council, and soon he had turned the hearts of all the Númenóreans, except the remnant of the faithful, back towards darkness.
Guess what? That's 2 seasons out of 5 right there.
And
just
Sauron
that brief stuff you read, that is going to get 2 seasons of television out of all that right there.
But it says, and Sauron lied to the king, declaring that everlasting life would be his, who possessed the undying lands. Wow. Okay, so
exactly.
Whew.
And so if we learn now that Isildur is going to be this front end character, which has been discussed since late October, and if we're learning now, we are learning very recently that Isildur has more siblings in his family than just the one of the historical record, Anarion. That means they're going for a bigger picture of family life and family drama with this character. And we've got lots of cracks and crevices to fill with the story, as they're going to go many, many episodes for 5 seasons. And if it is as successful as they want it to be, and if they get all the, primetime Emmy awards, then they're going to go for more seasons than 5.
Was
possibly.
Sauron, the chat room wants to know, was Sauron based on Hitler?
No.
Mm-mm. No.
Sauron was based upon a natural chain of connection in Tolkien's larger legends. He needed Morgoth to come to a comeuppance of sorts at the War of Wrath, but then somebody else needed to take up the mantle of Morgoth, even though he was off stage. So it had more to do with, there was a lot more story to tell, really.
So, guys, this is basically the only approved Lord of the Rings thing that we can absolutely confirm. It is the 50th anniversary 1-volume edition.
That's right.
You can probably buy it on Amazon worldwide. But it says right here, look for this cover, the 50th anniversary 1-volume collection, and start at the appendices.
And here's something that is not licensed. Take a look at this. It's called Unfinished Tales from Ballantine Books, and it is not licensed, at least not anything that we know of. It has not been licensed, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. There you go, everybody. Unfinished Tales. And let me get real quick, take a look and listen to this little bit here about the physical description of the island of Numenor. And I find this interesting because, again, Professor Tolkien has metaphysical concerns. It says, the account of the island of Numenor that here follows is derived from descriptions and simple maps that were long preserved in the archives of the kings of Gondor. Now, these represent, indeed, but a small part of all that was once written, for many natural histories and geographies were composed by learned men in Numenor, but like nearly all of these arts and sciences of Numenor at its high tide, they've disappeared in the downfall. To me, it sounds like Professor Tolkien is lamenting the burning and the destruction of the Library of Alexandria, the greatest collection of scrolls and knowledge and languages that humankind, one of the greatest, along with the early Persian libraries that were strongholds of academic learning. And then to have the library at Alexandria and all of its vast knowledge destroyed, I think there's a subtle historical echo to that when he talks about those histories of Numenor at high tide being lost in the downfall. But the next couple of sentences is even more interesting. Even such documents were preserved in Gondor or in Imladris, where, in the care of Elrond, were deposited the surviving treasures of the northern Numenorian kings. They suffered from loss and destruction by neglect, for though the survivors in Middle-earth yearned, as they said, for a Calabeth, the downfallen, and never even after long ages ceased to regard themselves as, in a measure, exiles, he's saying that even though they were kicked out, out of Numenor, they still considered themselves psychologically exiles. Oh, boo-hoo, When it became clear that the land of gift was taken away and that Numenor had disappeared forever, all but a few regarded that any study of what was left of its history as vain, just vain, breeding only useless regret. The story of Ar-Pharazôn and his impious armada was all that remained generally known in later ages. So the history of Numenor dominated years and years and years later only by the bad guy, not all the good stuff that they did, not all the amazing things they accomplished, but Numenorian history regarded, through the old prism of, oh, woe is me, we are exiled from Numenor. But any pursuit of that was considered vain, to just make you feel an echo of ongoing regret. And Tolkien is saying instead in this passage that, isn't it interesting that only the bad guy, Ar-Pharazôn, and his impious armada attempted to go and attack Valinor, they're the notorious ones who survive as a remembrance of the Numenorian historical record. That is interesting to me, very.
A bunch of people in the chat room want to know, who was the great evil? Is Sauron Satan? First off, Tolkien pulled from a bunch of inspirations of mythology and religion and everything else, but he created something that is uniquely his whole cloth. But let's go back to the BBC interview where he talks a little bit more about Sauron and whether Sauron is Satan. He really gets into it. Let's go back to that.
All right, how? What started it? There must have been a point at which quite suddenly, like God, you chose to make the world like that.
I was going to use that illustration. That's one of his lessons. Because, as I've said elsewhere, I think that if you wish to push me back into what semi-theological or philosophical back, I think because being made by a creator, one of our And one of the unnatural factors is wishing to create. But since we aren't creators, we have to sub-create. Let's say we have to rearrange the primary material in some particular form, which pleases us, which it isn't necessarily a moral pleasing, it's partly an aesthetic pleasing.
Then you make this distinction between what pleases aesthetically because it's balanced and what pleases morally. God, we may assume, made a moral rather than an aesthetic choice.
Aesthetically, because it's
That,
balanced. What pleases
That's too
morally.
great an assumption.
God, we may assume, made a moral rather than an aesthetic.
We're only looking at facets of one whole, but certainly an aesthetic whole is surely, an aesthetic facet is as strongly to be predicated as a moral one.
In this world that you yourself have made, the complexities that exist mostly, it seems to me, outside the creatures of the world. There is an absolute evil and there is an idea of absolute good. Would you agree? Mordor, after all, is a principle of absolute evil.
You don't believe in absolute evil, but you believe in absolute good.
Yes.
Let's say,
If you don't believe in absolute evil, why did you create the Dark Lord, who seems to be the apotheosis of it?
but he said in the book that he himself was not evil to begin with.
Ah, he fell. Then, like Lucifer.
Yeah.
So you're...
Well, he's several stages down from Lucifer.
You do believe, then, that there can be a state of absolute good from which most people do fall.
He said, for instance, there's no religion in the book. There isn't, for reasons which are partly aesthetic, partly auctorial, and partly the history. This book, so-called Lord of the Rings, comes at the end of a long series of stories I've created in which the situation would be explained. Why there were no, for instance, churches, rituals, and temples, and so on.
Yes, but sure, to read into the book a kind of allegory of the H-bomb. What is said somewhere in the book is that the One Ring is a power so enormous that even if a good man were to use it against a bad, it would corrupt the good man.
But that is a thing which other people have arrived, other viewers, other people arrived at long before the H-bomb was invented. Yeah. Also, I may say that I began building the stories in which of the Dark Lord when I was an undergraduate. They were already in an advanced stage during the First War. The H-bomb hadn't been heard of.
You say this... If...
Let's hold it there. He literally just said that he had basically created the whole life of the Dark Lord before he even went to war. As an undergraduate, and as an undergraduate at university. There's Tolkien himself saying that he had already thought through the entire arc of Sauron and the Dark Lord before he went to war. This is how, again, God, I look at how little the appendices are, but this is what Tolkien wrote first. And this story that Amazon's about to tell about Sauron corrupting and distributing all the rings and everything like that, it's the first thing that he wrote before The Hobbit, before he even graduated university. Is there any weight we should put on how important this was to Tolkien? It almost feels like this show that Amazon's about to create is the original story that Tolkien wanted to tell.
You're getting a little bit closer to it. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I may have muted myself by accident.
You're good.
Okay, as long as I sound okay. Hold on a second. I've got to sneeze. Sorry.
Thank you for muting on that. But
sorry. Okay. Look, seriously.
Do you get where I'm going with this?
You and everybody else who might take an intellectual curiosity to Tolkien and the history of the Silmarillion, you might all remember that, yes, Professor Tolkien was creating these stories of the Silmarillion a long, long time ago, and he always had wanted the Quenta Silmarillion and the larger legends of Arda to be published first. And they said no. The publishers said, we want more Hobbits. The readers, all the readers out there who loved that beautiful children's story, The Hobbit, they want more of those guys. We don't want to read Finrod Felagund. We don't want to read about Morgoth and Ungoliant and
Well,
the two trees. The problem was that, yeah, you're sort of right in saying
well,
that.
we just heard him say it. We just heard Tolkien in his own words say,
Yes.
I wrote about the Dark Lord and thought all the way through his story and his fall and his corruption. He said, I figured all that out before I even went to war as an undergraduate. So I'm, and responding to the chat, I'm not talking about when things were published and whether it's in Silmarillion or the appendices. I'm saying Tolkien just told us on camera that he wrote Sauron's story first.
When he said the Dark Lord, are you sure he wasn't talking about Morgoth?
100%, because early in that same clip, they start talking about Sauron, and Tolkien immediately goes into the Dark Lord. So there's no confusion there. If you go and rewatch, we retweeted it. Go to our timeline on Twitter. You can see the BBC video. It's 6.5 minutes long, but you can replay it and listen to what Tolkien is saying about the appendices, about evil, the nature of evil, the nature of good, and what he wrote first, and everything that I just said here, which is this is the first story.
I do think that it's not the first story. I think the first story was the lay of Luthien, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Professor Tolkien may have been writing. I think his earliest was about the mariner. His earliest poems and verse about Eärendil, the mariner who had the light of the Silmaril upon his brow as his ship went across the vault of heaven. And I think that might have been his earliest stuff, really.
All right.
But now you are onto something when you're connecting Amazon Studios and that amount of storytelling that they've licensed in the appendices. They are going to build their TV series around all these Second Age stories that are not exactly what Tolkien wanted first. He wanted the First Age stuff to be told first, about the two trees and Valinor and where the firstborn elves were born.
I'm not talking about what he wanted told first and published first. I'm saying he admits to what he wrote first.
Yes, and I'm getting to that. The energy that he put into the world building was already there way before he knew the events of the War of the Ring. Okay, that's stuff that happened with Frodo and Frodo's dealing with the ring and the ultimate downfall of Barad-dûr and Sauron was not stuff that Tolkien had discovered until he discovered it. But he had probably thought out, other cycles in his mind, but the crafting of the Lord of the Rings was like backtracking into and digging into that story that he didn't even know was there. He was mostly interested in his First and Second Age culminated histories to get published, and
especially with Sauron, the Dark Lord Sauron.
Rayner Unwin and the people at Allen and Unwin told him, no, John, no, John. We want more hobbits. So
were they wrong?
Actually, there's some agreement with people in the chat who actually say this is one of the weird times that I might have agreed with a publisher. No,
all right. So let's hold on.
They prompted him to go back and get creative all over again and tell the story of Bilbo's birthday party and in the inheritance of the ring passing to his nephew, and the story had to go from there. Yes.
Yeah, but I think the core thing I think you said is true. The publisher said we want more hobbits, and that's what people want.
And that's what he did.
And the chat room is begrudgingly agreeing with the publisher that wants to sell books. So let's take this to 2021, 2022, the year that we are in.
Yes, that's where we are now.
Is it bad that the studio is telling the filmmakers we need halflings? We need hobbits.
No, it's not bad. It's history repeating itself. It's not bad.
And
it's
it was
history
good
repeating
then.
itself.
It was
What
good then.
what
It should
is
be good now.
what is well, it should be good now, but what is questionable, I think, is the governance of the Tolkien estate that is allowing the Second Age to introduce all of these pre-ancestors of the Hobbits when the Hobbits just really don't show up in the record until the Third Age, thousands of years later.
So, but we know Harfoots, again, it's in this book. If we go to the prologue, I can find some Harfoots.
Yeah, but you're going on the basic conceit that these wandering, migrating Harfoots and the Stores, who were near the river, maybe they did not keep very good historical records, and that's why they didn't show up. That is the conceit of the Red Book of West March, in essence, is that the Silmarillion is all told from the elf-centric point of view, because it was the elves who kept that history, and the War of the Ring is told from the Hobbits' point of view, because they kept that history. So if there's not much real history about the early proto-Hobbits, the earliest antecedents, I could call them the early forefathers of the Hobbits, that's because they didn't keep their own historical records and only oral tradition. Maybe it was all they had. Maybe that's all they had.
It says yes. The beginnings of Hobbits lie far back in the elder days that are now lost and forgotten. Go ahead.
I want to ask what Princess Toy Nerd is asking in the YouTube chat. The real question is, though, do we really need hobbits in the show?
So it says right here in the book that Amazon has licensed, it says
Yes.
Only the elves still preserve any records of that vanished time, and their traditions are concerned almost entirely with their own history, the elves' history.
Yes,
in which
right.
men appear seldom, and hobbits are not mentioned at all.
At all. Yes, that's right.
So, yeah. Yet, it is clear that hobbits had, in fact, lived quietly in Middle-earth for many long years before other folk became even aware of them.
All right. I'm going to connect this to the mouth of Sauron.
That's rights. Those are rights that Amazon has.
They're talking in the live chat about how it's not possible or not plausible for the mouth of Sauron to be a character who shows up in the Second Age, right? And I agree, but they're going to try to find some kind of a way to twist something around, and they can make it happen. I agree, that we're trying to stick with, and they're going to get, if they go too far, indeed, this was spoken of by the Tolkien historian, academic, the one who's beloved by so many of us.
Do hobbits appear before the finding of the ring? Yes, absolutely. Before the creation of the ring. In fact, it says right here on page 3 of the prologue, again, what Amazon has licensed to, it says, their earliest tales seem to glimpse a time when they dwelt in the upper vales of the Anduin between the eaves of Greenwood and the Misty Mountains, ... and their own accounts speak of multiplying of men in the land, and then a shadow that fell, so that it became darkened, and its new name was Mirkwood. So the hobbits have the only record, the main record of Greenwood becoming Mirkwood.
There were a lot of men, woodmen, and the Beornings who also lived in that area. No, there were other settlements, a lot of other settlements. Remember, that area that was recorded as the Greenwood was the early forefathers of Eorl, the Young, who would go south and inherit the land to become Rohan, and he'd be the first leader of the Rohirrim. So there were men up there, as well as early halflings and the early breeds of the halflings were there. But I guess what I was trying to say a second ago was that there's this concept about the mouth of Sauron not being in the series, and I thought for years, at least a year and a half, I thought there will be no hobbits, and everybody heard me say it right here live on this channel.
And I said
everybody
they need
heard
hobbits.
Me say it.
I said that they needed hobbits. They needed a halfling.
Said no.
And every
I
man.
said there's not going to be any hobbits in this TV series. Why? Because it was set in the Second Age, and the hobbits are not going to show up till centuries and centuries later. Well, look at me. I've got egg on my face.
Because in Tolkien's own writing, he says, before the crossing of the mountains, the hobbits had already become divided into 3 somewhat different breeds. Harfoots,
yes,
Stoors, and Fallowhides. The Harfoots were browner of skin, smaller and shorter, and they were beardless and bootless. Their hands and feet were neat and nimble, and they preferred highlands and hillsides.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Amazon is introducing.
Yep. And they're introducing a sister, or maybe even more siblings for Isildur and Anarion. But you know what?
But that is not breaking the canon. That's what I want to know, Cliff, is that everything we've talked about today is not breaking canon, because he might have had a sister or a stepsister, but Tolkien didn't need to write about her because she wasn't part of the narrative that he was trying to tell.
That's right. You never know. But I also want to get to the bottom of saying there's already an existing brother who could be there to fill so much of the story. Why do they have to start creating new characters when there's already real, genuine Tolkien characters in the pages of the bloody books that have been ousted from all other adaptations before? Look, we've never gotten a Glorfindel. We never got Anarion. We got a whole lot of Isildur, didn't we? We even got Elendil. We got father and son at the battle of the last alliance of elves and men. But we didn't get it accurately told by Peter Jackson. It was both Gil-galad and Elendil. It took both of those individuals, the human king and the elf lord, to subdue and kill Sauron. Both of them died. We didn't see that. We didn't even see Anarion represented properly as a statue. He wasn't even a statue on the side of the river. They took Anarion out. There is so much unspoken story to be told about Anarion and his relationship with his brother.
I think it's more exciting that they're introducing new characters that are okay, that fit into the canon. They fit into the world. But Tauriel fit into the world, and so does Isildur's sister. And I actually think that's an interesting dynamic, to have a younger sister that knows that knows she will never be king or queen.
Well,
and what prestige does that give her, or lack of prestige?
If they're looking for ground to cover, all they have to do is use a lot of the stuff that's already there that Tolkien has given them. It's gold. It's absolute dramatic gold. And other filmmakers have completely ignored these characters before. So they've got a chance to bring in a bunch of characters who have been omitted by other adaptations. And that's my position. There you go. I think they should.
I have one more question for you on
they should not hold back. They should just go for it. Keep going for it, and go for it big time. Go for it.
Again, people in the chat room are asking if anyone can find an Amazon link to this edition. And again, it's the 50th anniversary 1-volume edition. This is as close to the official edition that Amazon says you need to have. We know for sure that they have all the rights to the appendices, and they are putting stuff from the prologue into the show, including the Harfoots. But Cliff, so final question on this show, as it relates to the rights that Amazon has. We just talked about that the elves were only concerned with their own history. And it says right here that the elves, only the elves preserve any records of the earliest times, of that vanished time. But they are only concerned almost entirely with their own history, and men appear seldom, and hobbits not mentioned at all. So the question is, the Amazon has released that photo of the two trees and Finrod. Do you think that the first episode will feature a prologue, and this story is told from the perspective of the elves? Maybe even Galadriel?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. Yeah.
Do you think this is Galadriel's perspective, and she's talking about her brother Finrod and the light of the two trees? Do you think we're getting the same thing that Peter Jackson gave us?
You thought in the first 7 minutes you were getting Galadriel's perspective, and you were getting all Galadriel's perspective. That is why she was chosen as the narrator for the opening of the Fellowship of the Ring. And then fade to black, and she stops talking, and she says, "For soon a time will come when hobbits, shall rule the fate of," whatever she says. And then fade to black, and then you hear that beautiful penny whistle. You hear that whistle. And the camera rises up.
Biggest smile on everybody's face when we first see that.
The rest of the story is very, very specifically taken away from Galadriel and the elves' point of view. And Peter Jackson totally shifts gears and lets the audience take the rest of the three movies, all from Frodo, Bilbo, and Samwise.
The interesting thing about
the last pages, Samwise' point of view.
But we're not. Amazon's not telling that story at all.
Nope, they're not.
But
the
interesting thing about the record keeping, as Tolkien just said, that the elves were only concerned with their own history.
Right.
Screw the men. The interesting thing that and I know, that television, the opportunity for television is now they can tell the same stories from multiple perspectives. Mm-hmm. Because according to Tolkien, the elves only kept records of their perspective. So we could get the full intro of Galadriel saying, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And then we could get five episodes in, or maybe a couple seasons in, and they stumble upon an old record of men that rewrites the history. And I like this narrative concept of, like, according to Tolkien, each of the races kept their own records and kept their own history.
Yeah. Do you know what? I would go as far as to warn our audience that we can reasonably anticipate that.
And dwarves. And don't forget the dwarves have their own history and their own perspective.
I would never forget the great history of the Longbeards in Khazad-dûm, which is...
I'm so excited about that part.
We're anticipating getting to see Khazad-dûm in the height of its glory. But you know what, Justin, I would take what you just said and I would second that. I would tell all of our audience, before we close the show tonight, that it's reasonable to expect exactly what you just described. I mean, not as far as going to an anthology series approach, where they switch gears and switch to different characters, but we heard the opening 7 minutes of Peter Jackson's movie directly Galadriel's point of view, and it is safe to assume that a lot of Amazon Prime is going to be Elvish-centric, and very specifically Galadriel's point of view yet again, because we no longer have the conceit of the Red Book of Westmarch with any hobbits recording anything. This is going to be like a record of somebody learning this in the high archives of Imladris, where all the records were brought over from Lindon by Gil-galad and his men during the last alliance.
The interesting part is that
Elvish-centric. Yeah,
we know Galadriel's going on a quest in the first season. We don't know what that quest is yet. Maybe it's to investigate some rumblings of darkness. Who knows? But we know. So based on Tolkien's book, the elves only kept their own records. So the interesting thing is, I think Galadriel's going to go on a quest. She's going to make decisions based on the history that she knows and she grew up with. But then she's going to run into dwarves and men and even maybe Harfoots that add some color to the tales that she knows, which could change her own history. And basically, we discover the full history of Middle-earth through Galadriel learning these extra perspectives. And that's fascinating.
That's a pretty interesting idea. Yeah.
And
sure,
that makes,
absolutely. I'm down.
That makes Morfydd Clark as Galadriel has the potential of being just a dominating Emmy Award-winning character.
Yes. Yeah, it could indeed. It could. You know what? Or, Robert Arameo, maybe his character, when he gets to actually...
I'm still not sold on him.
He
doesn't look the part.
Well, hold on. Galadriel is not known for keeping libraries in Lothlorien. You know who keeps all their libraries pretty busy? It's Rivendell. So maybe, just saying. But what a lovely show, and great to have everybody join us.
Hey, before we go,
it's great to start the new year like this. It's great.
And I wanted to start the new year with some Green Dragon gossip.
Okay.
I got two things for you. Little Green Dragon gossip. Guys, coming close.
What's happening? Is this more gossip than what they're talking about on Reddit? Is this more gossip?
I'm going to give you, I'm not 100%. I'm 90%. 90% sure. Ready for this, Cliff?
What's happening?
I am 90% positive.
Oh my gosh. What are you doing?
This Amazon show is in no way connected to Peter Jackson's universe. Let's get that off the table. It's not
a big disconnect?
It's not connected. Well, it's a separate thing. It's totally separate.
Except for being set in the same fictional universe with similar characters.
Yeah, they didn't work it out. They've made a choice to go their own way. This is a different cinematic universe.
Does that mean no Howard Shore music?
So that's the trick, right?
Does that mean no Howard Shore music? What does that mean?
I think Howard Shore is involved in a smaller capacity, and most of the music will be Bear McCreary.
Oh dear. Okay.
But I don't think we're going to hear those iconic themes that we are familiar with.
Well, maybe it'll just be a big opening title theme, and that's all. And maybe Howard is only going to write the opening title. That's all.
So that is the latest Green Dragon gossip. Again, I'm not 100% on this, but it is so strong. I can't tell you how I know.
Bummer.
Because I've seen and heard things.
I'm bummed.
We're still getting spy reports from people that worked on the show, and we haven't published everything that we know, but everything that I've seen with my own eyes is so clearly different. I think
that if you're going to spend $1 billion on this, and you're going to tell people, hey, do you love Middle-earth? Yeah, you love Middle-earth. Then come and join us. Come over to be a subscriber on our service and come and experience Middle-earth with us. The only reason they're doing that is because they're not going to do a bait and switch. They can't afford to do a $1 billion bait and switch. They cannot do that. That's my last opinion on that. I've got nothing else to say on that.
All right, but to that point, everyone knows that Amazon is way behind on marketing. We are 9 months away from the show debuting, and we still don't have a trailer. We don't have a title.
Teaser.
We don't have it.
There's no title, no teaser. There's nothing.
So I think that one of the reasons is because it is extremely difficult, to the point you just made, Cliff. how do you market a show that is not connected to the movies that won all the Oscars and everyone fell in love with, and is maybe using Weta Workshop, Weta Digital, may have Howard Shore involved, may have John Howe and Tom Shippey at an early stage. How do you start marketing a show that has to be clearly, like, what they should not do is say more of the same. Welcome back. Do not say welcome back, because you're not welcoming us back to a world we're familiar with. You're taking us to a new place. And I understand the stress of how do you figure out that messaging. And so people in the chat room are saying, do we know when the trailer's coming? Possibly. I think Lord of the Rings is correct. I think we start to see stuff around the Super Bowl. Honestly, I think I think we get stuff around the Super Bowl. I think the fans get a nice little teaser trailer before the Super Bowl. So maybe 6 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now, and then there's a big 30-second Super Bowl spot for general audiences. But
do you know what?
If it's not connected to Peter Jackson's world, this is a big, hard problem to solve. And I don't have the answers.
I don't have the answer here at the very end of our show. I think I could dedicate a couple of entire episodes of the future of Torn Tuesday. We could get to the bottom of this, and we could talk with our friends, all the people who are in our community, going to join us in the chat. We should ask everybody, and we should even do a Twitter poll or 2 or 3 and start examining what it would be like to actually market a show when you're trying to be so different from Peter Jackson's previous Oscar-winning. But you know what? Time is of the essence. And
when is the Super Bowl? That's a good question. A lot of our viewers are not in the U.S.
It is the second weekend of February. Okay.
It is February 13th this year.
Yep.
So
second
right
weekend,
around Valentine's.
Yeah, second weekend of February. So I want to wish everyone a really wonderful, happy New Year, and thank you for joining us. Because in the near future, we're going to get to the bottom of this rumor. This little rumor.
That's
that they
just
really
the latest Green Dragon gossip. Cliff, did you know? By the way, Cliff, I wanted to bring this up before we go.
Oh, but I'm afraid that what is it?
Real quick.
Did you
see the tweets from the Melonheads?
Yes, I did. I often see the tweets and the memes from the Melon heads. Yes, I do.
And you saw what happened. You saw the response.
I did, yeah.
So the Melonheads is a wonderful meme posting account, and they say happy 130th birthday to the legend that started all, J.R. Tolkien. Wonderful. That's it. Great photo. Any of us would have posted that. And the Tolkien Society decides to say, do you have permission to use that image? And according to Sean Gunner, who's the head of the Tolkien Society, Sean Gunner spent $25,000 of his nonprofit's money to acquire an image library of Tolkien's friend. And so
an image library that they evidently are trying to license out to people, like Getty Images is always licensing stuff to people. Yeah.
And so I have to say, as a nonprofit, Tolkien Society as a nonprofit, I believe it is your duty to spend money that normal folks can't to make information free to the public. And I think that's one of the core charters of a nonprofit is acquiring money and donations and solicitations so that you can buy stuff and then make it available to us. And by spending $25,000 on an image library of ancient Tolkien photos, old Tolkien photos and videos and whatever else you've acquired, it's not for you to make money off of us fans. So
agreed. I very much agree with that philosophy.
Anyway,
I back that 100%.
All right, back that up and back us out of here.
I want to say good night to everybody and a very happy new year, a feliz año nuevo. There is a way to say happy new year in Elvish, but I have forgotten, and I will look it up and say happy new year in Sindarin or in Quenya, however, and I can say that next Tuesday. Until then, make sure you guys stay safe and warm and dry, and then come and join us next Tuesday at
Stay
5
safe,
o'clock.
get vaccinated, keep your mask
Please
on.
do. Yes. And watch out for one another and take care of one another. We'll see you next Tuesday, 5 o'clock Pacific time. Until then, good night and good luck. Or better yet, buenos noches y buena suerte. Bye, everybody. Cheers.